So the Illmatic anniversary just passed.
It did. It did. I'm rocking my Nas Illmatic shirt today.
Yeah, I forgot.
You did not come to represent.
I wore
from Illmatic. Yeah.
Nice
You caught that.
Nice
Good.
Yeah. I wore the day of, so this was the day after the anniversary, because the day of the anniversary I was mostly doing work inside and I was like not outside. I was at the Nets game, and then the fight we just mentioned, Crawford Khan, I had the Illmatic socks on. The ones that I showed you from Stance.
So you did represent
yes,
once.
On 420 instead of 419, but still, I was there with socks on all day. They were playing a lot of Nas at MSG that night too.
Nice.
They play representing Nabate, friend of the show, Nabate House. He got hyped.
That's good.
He said, I think he said represent's second verse is his favorite verse on Illmatic, which is interesting.
Oh.
See, that's the thing too. And talking about this album, I threw into the group chat, the infamous group chat that we've referenced on this podcast more than once. What is your favorite verse from Illmatic? Or, what do you think is the best verse? And what do you think is your favorite verse? We all had different answers.
The best verse by Nas, because AZ's Life's a Bitch can absolutely give anybody
That's
a run
what
for
I
money.
said. That's what I said.
Nas's verse on that is really good, but AZ's verse is
to me, the best verse on that album might be New York State of Mind first verse. But the interesting thing to me was that we all had different answers. That's how good that album was. There was a Represent there. There was One Love third verse. There was
that's a great verse.
There was Memory Lane I brought up.
Memory Lane first verse. That's one of my favorites.
Ain't Hard to Tell first verse.
First verse, yeah.
You know what I mean?
And last verse.
And last verse, yeah.
Yep.
New York State of Mind first verse, definitely.
You can. Somebody could go anywhere, and I could not.
The World Is Yours.
World Is Yours, which is my favorite song.
Yes,
off the album. But
mine is New York State of Mind. I would say. Yeah.
What here's what's interesting to have this conversation with you around it, because for me that
I received it differently.
No, at a different time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You weren't like I was there. You were born.
I was born,
but you weren't
when I really received the
album. You couldn't listen to it.
Yeah, when I really received it, I was a kid. And then I just sort of grew up with it, but I didn't grow up with it in the same way like my brother did, who was a teenager when it came out. You know what I mean?
And for me, I was 11 when that album came out.
Right, exactly.
And and I think we've spoken about this before on the podcast. But
wait, your parents let you listen to that?
My parents didn't know.
Oh, okay. Like, damn.
Like they heard, Ain't Hard to Tell, or they heard The World Is Yours when
they
on the radio.
They definitely didn't hear Represent.
No,
they definitely.
So my cousin.
Yeah,
is right, because he's a little older than me. He's like 4 years older than me. He had all the hip hop albums, and he used to have 36 Chambers. I remember his boys in high school would come over and they'd be playing it, and I remember my uncle would come down in the basement and hear the curses, and be like, "Turn that off! Like you can't."
So it was like they do in the movies.
Yeah. So so
TV show.
My mom didn't know I had Illmatic. So the first thing I heard Illmatic, and I loved Ain't Hard to Tell, the song.
Yeah.
And then my cousin played me the album, and I was just like, this is crazy. Like, to me at that time was the illest thing I ever heard. And I made him
still might be.
This shows my age. This was back when somebody had an album, because my cousin had it on cassette.
Okay.
And he made a copy for me. So I had it on a blank
copy
cassette.
Of a cassette.
Yeah, you had two players. Kids, this is going to show my age for the kids out there who don't know. You had a deck in which you had two cassette players in there. One was to record. You could also play in that too, and one was played. So you had to literally play the album, and you hit the record on the other cassette, and then that's how you do it. That's the first rap album I bought, but I remember before I could buy it and I had like some money to buy it, I had my cousin's, dub tape is what I had. Like the copy of that onto a blank cassette tape, and I was going around bumping that in my Walkman consistently. Like, that was all I listened to. Now, I never played it at home, because if my mom heard me playing some of the stuff that was on Illmatic, she would probably threw my deck or my little Iowa radio that I had in my room out the window. So that wouldn't have been good.
I can't the album is so good, man.
The album's so good.
It's like what Robin Lundberg said on our second episode of this podcast. So this was a while ago.
Yes.
But he said, and although he acknowledged that Jay-Z is obviously his favorite, he said that if you have the trivia question to what's the greatest rap album of all time, Illmatic is probably going to be the answer.
It is for me. Yeah. Nothing has touched it.
It's the best album.
It is for me. There's things that are also, I feel like, are great, but I just think that is.
Yeah, there's things that are probably on that level.
birthed everything after it. It was the perfect continuation of the people like the Rakims and the Cool G Raps
Yeah.
before and the Big Daddy Kanes, and Nas just took. I never heard anybody so poetically tell stories. What that was just like this is, and the production is just it's just great. I know some people will argue that it's dated, but I think the impact of it is good.
I don't think so. For me, it was so ahead of its time, and it still holds up.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
And it's funny because this 25th anniversary made me realize that there's a book I never finished. Michael Eric Dyson has this book called Born to Use Mics that I actually have. And I was looking, before we came to record this podcast, I was looking for it because I was like, I was reading it maybe a couple months before my daughter was born. And what it does is a chapter by chapter breakdown of all the songs.
Yeah.
If you know anything about Michael Eric Dyson, he's a huge Nas Illmatic fan.
Yes, I know
He
that.
also a super intellectual look at it and the storytelling that Nas is doing in it. So I haven't finished the book. I plan to finish it at some point within the next month because I need to get back into reading it. But I think I was just up to Life's a Bitch. So I was like 3 tracks in. So Life's a Bitch is the track that I'm actually dissecting right now. But it's fantastic. I'll give you that book when I'm done. Like,
Word. I don't know if people
good.
do that for albums now. You know what I mean? Like, although no, I think we could see a Kendrick album having that sort of.
Well, I mean that podcast Dissect that's out, which is actually a
You
dope
told- yeah,
podcast.
yeah,
They
yeah,
did
yeah,
a
you
breakdown
told
of
me
Good
about
Kid,
this.
Man City.
You talking about this a long
and
time
Pimp,
ago.
which was fantastic.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was really good. It was fantastic, and they've done some other albums since. They did after that. They did, which I think is an overrated album, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy.
Oh yeah.
And then they
Sorry,
did,
Gerard.
and they did one of my other favorite albums of all time, Miseducation, Lauryn Hill, which is one they did this season, but I haven't listened to that.
I was listening to that the other day.
Yeah, so
that
like,
album.
So like that's dope. But look, Illmatic, the impact of this album, undeniable. I still probably listen to it once a month. I always listen to the album at least once a month. Love it. What did you come up? What did you say your favorite song is? What off the album?
Favorite song? I think New York State of Mind.
New York State of
I
Mind.
think New York State of Mind.
And your verse? Did you come up with a verse?
My favorite verse is AZ's verse on Life's a Bitch.
I see it. I think that's fair. I can understand that.
But that's because I don't know. That one just stuck with me the most when I first heard it. You know what I mean? Like
he kills it.
Yeah.
He kills it,
but I think the best verse is, we didn't even mention Halftime and One Time for Your Mind. I think the best verse is probably, it's so hard, man. Like you can literally go 10 different ways.
I think if I had to pick a verse, I gotta go.
Like if you had gun to your head, knife to your throat.
And if I'm taking a Nas verse, I might have to take Memory Lane verse 1
for best.
Yeah,
I might take. I'm taking New York State of Mind first verse or One Love third verse.
I'm fine.
One
with
Love
that.
third verse.
It's great.
God damn.
Yeah, great. I think sometimes when you hear stuff from rappers outside of New York now, who maybe are in that same age range as the Nas, talk about it, they're like, "Oh, well, I got onto it and I thought this was like really dope and great." And so there were people listening to it. So it's just had a different impact. But I think for like New Yorkers, one thing I'll say, my boy Anthony Slater, he always says this. He says Illmatic's the perfect album if you took it, put it in a time capsule, put it in the ground, had somebody dig it up 100 years later, it would perfectly encapsulate what New York felt like at that time for people in black and brown neighborhoods. And that is so true. I just think the sound, the storytelling around it, the things that were going on, it's a perfect like history into an album of like what it was at that time for his tales in the Queensbridge projects, right? Like it's just perfect the way it's just encaptured, and I think that's the greatness of the album.